Hey folks, thanks for tuning into this video. If you followed my channel for any amount of time, you probably are aware that I used to be a major Civil War buff. I've written lots of articles and published a book about the American Civil War. And what I want to do in this video is lay out the conclusive evidence that the Civil War was not about slavery. Now, there is some evidence that many of the southern states left for reasons involving slavery, but that's not what the war was about. And I'm going to show you the evidence from Abraham Lincoln and the United States government admitting that it's not what the war was about. If this video gets some good reactions, I'll make another one taking the evidence that scholars and historians use to argue that the war was about slavery, and I will debunk those things. But I want to start off with the positive things and show you from the leaders themselves so that you can see in their own words that no, they did not think they were fighting for slavery. One of the first good sources is this quote from Abraham Lincoln. And again, if you want to check out on the bottom of all these slides, I'll have the sources for these quotes if you want to look them up yourself. But you can see that Abraham Lincoln said, "We didn't go into the war to put down slavery, but to put the flag back. And to act differently at this moment would, I have no doubt, not only weaken our cause, but smack of bad faith. For I never should have had votes enough to send me here if the people had supposed I should try and use my power to upset slavery. Why, the first thing you'd see would be a mutiny in the army. No, we must wait until every other means has been exhausted. This thunderbolt will keep." And again, Lincoln has said several things that most historians will acknowledge, such as the fact that he stated that he would keep slavery if it could have kept the country together. If you read the Emancipation Proclamation, he offered to give the South 100 days to come back into the Union and keep slavery. So Abraham Lincoln was completely fine with keeping slavery if it would have kept the country together. Okay? And he said that on many different occasions in many different ways. So moving on here, this is a speech that Abraham Lincoln gave in Kalamazoo, Michigan. You can see here, he says, "The free territories of the United States should be kept open for the homes of free white people. In this we have an interest, a deep and abiding interest." So if you look at the early Republican Party platform, a major thing a lot of its supporters wanted was to have the Western territories open for free white labor. They thought that slavery actually lowered the value of white labor. So people like Abraham Lincoln were actually trying to exclude black people from the territories, including free black people. And you can look this up. This is common knowledge about the Republican Party's original platform. Now, there were some more radical people that were in the party, but that's not what its founders intended, and that's certainly not what Lincoln intended. In fact, if you look at his second presidential run, he did not run with the Republican Party because of how radical they were being perceived. This is what Abraham Lincoln said about colonization, and there's actually a really famous speech that he gave to a bunch of important black leaders at the time where he confessed that, yes, he believed the white and black races would never live in equality in the United States, and that he was considering for many years trying to send black people out of the country into colonies in either Liberia or Haiti. You can see here he says, "I believe, however, opinion among them in this respect is improving, and that ere long there will be an augmented and considerable migration from both these countries to both these countries from the United States." And Abraham Lincoln was considering colonization well up until the time he was killed. So you can look this up. Again, he delivered speeches at the White House about this, and it was something he was completely open to, and he discussed this on numerous occasions, something a lot of the mainstream historians like to leave out. You also need to look into the Crittenden Resolution. A lot of people call this the Crittenden-Johnson Resolution. And this is the official statement from the United States government admitting that they were not fighting for slavery. Okay, and if you look at this language here, it says, "This war is not waged upon our part in any spirit of oppression, nor for any purpose of conquest or subjugation." And this is the key right here. "Nor for the purpose of overthrowing or interfering with the rights or established institutions of those states." When they say institutions, they mean slavery. "But to defend and maintain the supremacy of the Constitution and to preserve the Union." So again, the United States government said, hey, we're not fighting for slavery. We're fighting to preserve the Union. Abraham Lincoln said, hey, we're not fighting for slavery. That would literally cause the army to mutiny. Okay? But yet, if you turn on the History Channel, or go to college and listen to any mainstream history professor. They're going to tell you that, yes, it was about slavery. Finally, you need to look into the original 13th Amendment. This was called the Corwin Amendment, based on the man who proposed this. Abraham Lincoln mentioned this in his first inaugural address. And this amendment would have done the actual opposite of what the current 13th Amendment did. And if you look at this language here, it said that no amendment shall be made to the Constitution which will authorize or give Congress the power to abolish or interfere within any state with the domestic institutions thereof. So again, institutions is the key word for slavery. They tried to keep the word slavery out of the Constitution if possible. So they're talking about these domestic institutions and referring to slavery, saying that yes, they will not be able to touch it from a national government perspective. So these guys proposed this, trying to keep the southern states from leaving, and guess what? They still seceded, because at the end of the day, they were fighting for self-government. There were issues with tariffs that had been going on since the early 1800s. So the people who are telling you that the Civil War was about slavery, they do have some pieces of evidence that, again, I will reference in another video if this gets a lot of reactions. But if you look at what the leaders said, what the United States government said, they admitted it wasn't about slavery. They were trying to keep the Union together. Okay, there was a lot of money involved in this. Again, the South produced a lot of raw materials. Abraham Lincoln said himself that this was about taxes, basically. He would keep slavery if it could keep the country together. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. I appreciate your time. I hope this will at least have you asking some questions and maybe looking into this a little bit more. If you think something I said in this video was wrong, please let me know and I will address it. I'll make a correction if I was indeed wrong. I appreciate your time. God bless.